Well, joining me on CEO Hub today is Andrew Bassat, the CEO of Seek. Welcome to Business Spectator, Andrew.
Thank you.
Now, you had an interesting progression, an evolution of your role at Seek. You started off, you came from consulting, and you began the business with Matt Rockman and your brother Paul, and then Matt left, and then it was you and Paul as joint CEOs, and then you ended up on your own. So tell us a bit about that, because I mean, your role, I guess, in the beginning was strategy, and now you're hands-on. You're actually running the business. Have you found that whole transition difficult to do?
Look, it's been interesting. I probably didn't expect to be or aspire to be in the seat I'm in right now. Firstly, with not a large company, but a significantly sized company, and secondly, the CEO, rather than more strategy role. But it's been an interesting evolution. In part, Matt and Paul, for different and very good reasons, decided it was time to move on. In each case, it made sense for me to take on some of the additional duties. But the positive thing, I think, the thing that's made it easier for me personally and made it easier for the company. There's always been a great team around us. I think a lot of the focus over the last few years has been on Paul and I.
Do you think it's better to have, for a company such as Seek or any company really, to have one leader instead of two or three?
Look, I think the evolution's worked well for the company. So I think originally the three of us, it was fantastic. I think it gave three owners rather than one to really push forward. Each has been very different skills. Worked very well for a long time. The Matt decided to leave. Probably again, having the two of us at the head. Also worked for a while. Paul looked after his areas, I looked after mine. It probably let us push further and harder than we would have with one leader. Probably we reached a time, regardless of whether it was Paul or I that left, that it made sense to have one leader, to have one voice. And
I suppose it helped that your brothers. Do you think it helped that your brothers, working so well together?
I think it would have been. Look, I think you need trust. So if you've got two leaders, or you've got three leaders, as we had with Matt, you need trust. You need a good relationship, and I think the fact that Paul and I were brothers helped with the trust. Obviously, Matt was a very good fellow, obviously pushing in the right direction. So we had the trust that made it possible. Without the trust, it would not have been the case. But yeah, it did help with brothers in that sense.
So what was the main challenge moving from strategy, the strategy role, to actually running the business?
Yeah, look, in part it's been made easier by the fact that there's some very good people who have been doing a lot of the work in the past around some of the operations of the business, the finance and so on. But it was a bit of a challenge in the past. I've been protected by Paul to some extent and been able to focus on the stuff that was much closer to my background, the strategy, the growth, the acquisitions and so on. I have had a fair bit of exposure over the years to some of the operational aspects. This more fully threw me into it. And it's been a challenge to get my head around some areas that I hadn't dealt with directly before. I
suppose the strategy, most of the things that the company's doing were devised by you in a way. If you were in charge of strategy, you would have come up with the expansion into education and learning, and also the expansion offshore. And now you have to implement those things.
Yeah, they're all happening and they're all going well. So to some extent, yes, that was my role, and now my role is to make sure we execute them well, and that's all fine.
You've got, I think you've got three businesses now. Effectively, you've got the domestic business, you've got the education business, and then you've got the international business. Is it all going as you had hoped it would?
Look, it is in many ways. So domestic business is going well. Obviously, there is a cycle that goes up and down. But in terms of what we're doing at a structural level, the shift from print to online, and also what we're doing to improve the product and technology over time is going very, very well. International is going better than we expected. And probably as a result, our focus in terms of investment and effort has been more on international than education. So education is probably a little bit behind in terms of size and growth at the moment.
And international, you've got number one positions in a number of markets, Mexico, Brazil, Southeast Asia.
Yep.
Which looks the best, do you think?
Oh, look, they're all good. So we have a number two position in China. So we like all of our assets. They're all high growth. They're all profitable. They're all doing better cash flow than they are profitability. So we think all five will be great businesses. China should be the largest. But Brazil, Southeast Asia, and Mexico will be very significant businesses also.
And with those businesses, did you get into them earlier, do you think, than you did with Seek?
Oh, look, yes and no. I mean, we started Seek organically, so it was earlier in terms of the evolution of the market, but it needed to be. Whereas to get into these more later stage relative to Seek, but early stage relative to Australia now, we needed to invest our way in. And yes, those markets are still 5+ years behind Australia.
The interesting thing I find is that America is obviously further along than those countries in terms of internet penetration, yet I think your competitor or your counterpart in the US is smaller than Seek.
Yeah, look, I think...
What's going on with that? And what does it mean for you?
Look, I think some things have gone right for us in terms of our competitor set, but I think we've done a relatively good job in Australia about getting the fundamentals right and then making money from that. I think in some other markets, our competitors haven't done as good a job at that, and as a result, their market share and therefore their profitability, not only in pro rata but in absolute sense, hasn't been as good.
Because those markets are more fragmented.
They are more fragmented now, and I think that's in part because the competitor set, but in part how you develop your own strategies. But the American market and many of the European markets are very fragmented.
And what do you think your main threat is? Is it LinkedIn and social media generally?
Oh, look, I think we need to be alive to. I think we feel we have the current competitors and their current guys reasonably well covered, and they're not hurting us in terms of ad volumes or job seekers. But I think we need to be alive to the fact that the internet moves very quickly, technology moves very quickly in the same way we came from left field and challenged the newspapers. So I think our job is to devise the threats that can hurt us and evolve towards them before anyone else can. And there are plenty of smart people trying to take the market from us.
Yeah, so you didn't really answer the question. Are you concerned about LinkedIn? And
look, LinkedIn and its current guys, we think has got flaws in terms of how they're adopting their model, and some of the other competitors we feel we're protected against, particularly in Australia, through our very strong market share, the good relationship with the job seekers, good relationship with advertisers and brand and so on. But we are seeing these models emerge and want to do better than anyone else globally.
So you're okay with LinkedIn, but you're worried about maybe something else that you haven't seen?
We're worried about the next evolution, exactly.
The next one.
And we want to invent that.
And it's interesting that obviously the past in print in classifieds, it was all centred in Fairfax, jobs, cars and real estate.
Yep.
In online, it was all separate companies. What's your view about how the other classified sites, real estate and car sales, have done?
Look, I think they've both done a good job, and in part that's why we're not involved in those areas, because these guys have got there first and done a very good job. So each of car sales and real estate we think are good businesses. We think they've got room for growth, and we think they're doing a very, very good job servicing the market.
Can you imagine a time when the three of you would be joined up into one business, as Fairfax was?
Well, look, when we started our business plan, it was all about, in fact, real estate first, jobs second, cars third. And then we switched employment and real estate, and we kind of never got to real estate and cars before other people got to them. But look, I don't think so. I think the distribution mechanism of the newspapers made sense for them to be together. That's no longer the case because we're all distributed through the internet. So I think the logic of combining them is less.
And I guess for your own growth in jobs, it's interesting that 84% of ads are online, but the spend is still only 56%. So there's obviously still a great transition still to come from print to online.
As a headline number, yes, that's right. We think that over time, usually dollars catch up with the eyeballs, and there's still a big gap between the dollars and the eyeballs. You've seen in the US the spend move to over 80% online versus print, and we're confident of continued growth in the Australian market.
And what about you personally as a CEO? Do you don't look at Paul's sort of 18 months overseas and think, I wish I could do that sometime?
Well, Paul's nice and relaxed now, so he's enjoying himself. Look, I'm enjoying what I'm doing now, so I think I'm enjoying the job, I'm enjoying the challenges. I still think the job's half done for Seek, not completely done. So there's still plenty of work to do before I sort of join Paul on the beach.
But are you thinking about succession planning?
Yeah, of course, you need to. And the reality is when as I mentioned before, that we've actually got a really, really strong exec team around us, we always have. They're doing a lot of the hard work, we take a lot of the credit, that makes sense. And I think over time it's important we do have successes in place that mean that even when I decide to retire, the company will go on unhindered.
And you think your successor is in the company now?
I hope so. That's certainly the plan.
Great to talk to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Great.